I mean, there really is such a blurring of the line between our personal lives and our work lives. So I think it takes really deliberate action to begin to untangle that identity, is really recognizing the ways in which you've sort of sacrificed pieces of your identity in pursuit of work.
There are opportunities for our work and careers everywhere, if you know where to look. That's easier said than done, especially in our fast-paced and constantly changing world. Marianne Fairmouth is talking to experts, employers, and job seekers to bring you insight and understanding about what's possible. This is Career Can Do, where we're navigating the new work world.
Welcome to the Career Can Do podcast, a top global podcast dedicated to helping you navigate the new work world. My name is Marianne Fairmouth, and I'll be your host for this episode. And today I'm just delighted to have a guest on my show that's doing so many amazing things to help the work world and beyond. Faye McCray is an author, executive leader, journalist, and attorney with a passion for brand building and storytelling. Most recently, Faye was vice president and head of content for Well and Good and Livestrong.com, where she owned the strategic vision for editorial strategies across all channels. She's also a notable speaker who draws on her years of experience as a health attorney and journalist to speak to issues such as mental health and wellness, maternal health, health equity, healthcare systems and disparities, and workplace mental health. And so after that incredibly long introduction, without further ado, help me welcome Faye. Faye, say hello to everybody.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, we're thrilled to have you. You know, your background, your accomplishments are so vast. And in these challenging times, post-COVID, we're all needing strategies and ideas about how to create workplace mental health and for our professional and personal selves. That's a real issue, I think, these days. So many people talk about self-care when it comes to work-life balance, but you focus on something deeper, redefining success and ambition. What does it mean to embrace healthy ambition, and how can listeners start that journey?
Yeah, well, thanks again for having me, Marianne. And I love this question so much because I am a product of grind culture. I was born and raised in New York. I grew up sort of with this hustle at all costs mentality, and it manifested in wonderful ways in terms of my success. But I think for a long time, I thought the hustling and overwork was synonymous with success. You know, you had to just constantly be on the grind in order to be successful. And in reality, I was sacrificing a lot of not just my mental health, but my physical health. So I think redefining success and really thinking about what healthy ambition is really starting to ask yourself those important questions about how you define success, right? So if you're in an environment right now where you find yourself sort of overworking, ask, does the goal that I'm working towards align with what matters, the most to me? Am I energized in pursuit of these goals? It's really important to realign, with what you're doing, to say, am I just working for the sake of working, or am I working because this matters to me and it matters to my bottom line, which in my case has always been to make an impact, right? It's sort of just been what I've been fueled by. So I don't believe in kind of just completely withdrawing. I think so many people are driven for a reason, and fortunately we have to work, in a lot of ways. But I think it's just not working for the sake of working. It's finding out if, what you're doing is aligned with the goals that you want to achieve and really doing that reassessment.
Oh, I think that's so important. And I'm just so thrilled to have you on the show, Faye, because I think so many of our listeners right now are struggling with this work-life balance scenario. Post-COVID, so many of us are trying to regroup and reorganize and reboot and really move forward in a way that's productive. But I think your point is, at what cost, and how can we do it in a way, even though we want to become successful, that's healthy for ourselves and the people around us. So I think, your work is so critical right now. I'm just so thrilled to have you on the show. We talked about this a little bit in the Blue Room, but Faye, our identity is often tied to what we do. How can listeners begin to untangle their sense of self from their careers and create a more balanced, fulfilling relationship with work?
Yeah, I think this question is almost like kind of life's puzzle, right? And I think it begins when we're kids. Just think about it. Like the first question that you get is, what do you want to be when you grow up? And from then on, you're sort of working in pursuit of these goals and these dreams. And you learn that your work identity is tied to your personal identity, and there's no existing outside of the two. So I think it really does begin with sort of a reframing, right, of how you think about work, how you think about who you are outside of work. I know even as an adult, you don't really enter a room without someone saying, so what do you do? Right? Like that's usually the first question. That's our point of connection with one another. So we are enmeshed, we are entangled. It is just sort of what we are as a society. So I think it really does boil down to reflecting, right? Reflecting on your values, reflecting on your passions outside of work, building a healthier relationship with work, turning it off. You mentioned post-pandemic this being even more challenging. And it's because we're hanging 24-hour-a-day signs from our desk, right? Because we're at home, it's hard to turn off. I mean, there really is such a blurring of the line between our personal lives and our work lives. So I think it takes really deliberate action to begin to untangle that identity, is really recognizing the ways in which you sort of sacrifice pieces of your identity in pursuit of work, shutting off. I've made it a habit lately of not putting work apps on my phone. I know I can almost hear the gasps from your audience because we're so used to just being constantly connected to our phones. But it's really important for me in order to say that if I am out at my son's basketball game, or if I'm out at a movie with my husband, I'm not constantly kind of checking what's going on at work or checking in. So I think it's so important to be really proactive about setting those boundaries, because it really is an unlearning, right?
No, I think it is. I think it is. And another thing we talked about in the Blue Room, you're doing this wonderful rest and reclaim retreats expedition that got going on. And I think that's so necessary and so helpful for so many people. Tell us a little bit about that and how that all got started.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where I was thinking I could really use a vacation, but it was just the time of year when things were so busy that I couldn't really take an extended time. And I thought, it doesn't necessarily have to be this fancy thing, right? You can just take a day, to really reset. And I sort of put out some feelers in my network. I belong to an amazing group of executive women called Chief. That was the first place that I went. Hey guys, like, would you be interested in doing something like this? And the hands immediately were raised. Folks were really excited about it. So we held a day retreat, rented out some space at a spa, brought in some people to sort of talk about boundary setting and connection with oneself. We sat in silence a lot, which was fantastic. And I can just see, as someone who organized the retreat, the faces sort of shift, right? Like just lift up, like you can see a difference from when people came in and they were still kind of glued to their phones, to the end of the day when people just look lighter and freer. And I just think those pauses and resets are so necessary, not just for your health, but I think also as business leaders and entrepreneurs, like in order to like fuel thought, right? And creativity and innovation, you can't be crowded, you can't be busy. So you need those times to just sort of step away and reset. So it's been an amazing thing. I've been doing them once a quarter and it's always well received. And, again, at the end of the day, you can just see the lift in everyone.
Oh, that's wonderful. And, at the time of this airing, it is near the end of the year, around the holiday time. And I think, Faye, a lot of people right now are reassessing and saying, what do I want my 2025 to look like? What do I want it to be? It's interesting. We're doing this now. I was asked to do a speech for a group, and the theme of the group for this particular gathering is home for the holidays. And so the speech I decided to give is coming home to who you really are. And I think a lot of what you're saying is, we all can do that. It doesn't necessarily have to be only an identity with what we do for a living, but you come to, who are we? What are our boundaries? How can we become our best self? But I think also for me, and I think you'll probably agree with this, become our best self and be accomplished and all that, but more importantly, give back. How can we help others with what we accomplish, with what we do, what we achieve? How can we take what we do, what those lessons are, and help others? I think you do that. I think I do that. And I think that's very, very meaningful, at least for me. Now, you advocate for reflection and realignment as we set intentions for the new year, like we've been talking about. So what advice do you have, Faye, for listeners who want to take their goals beyond surface level resolutions and create lasting, meaningful change for 2025?
Yeah. I've navigated quite a few pivots in my career. So I practiced law for a bit before I went into journalism. And I realized through navigating those pivots, just the importance of pace and reflection, thinking about deliberately, right? About kind of what you want your next move to be, but also there's no rush, right? You have a big goal, break it down, think about what is the first step towards that goal. I talk a lot, I have a newsletter and I talk a lot about my mom because at 41, she went back to school. It was post-divorce, single mom, beautiful, love my mom so much. And she made this choice that she was going to go back to school to get her bachelor's, then her master's. And as a young girl, witnessing her make this huge change in her life was life altering for me, right? To see her go from being somewhat of a homemaker, really, to being this powerful businesswoman was just one of the greatest things to witness. But what it taught me is just she saw no rush in her goals. She knew it was going to take some time to get there. She knew maybe she could take one class a night, in order to get there, but she took it one step at a time. And I think it was so instructive to me throughout my life, just the importance of pace, the importance of any step forward is a step forward, right? It's a step closer to the things that you want. So I think reflecting on what it is you want and setting those goals and then giving yourself the ease to achieve them in whatever pace, whatever that looks like, right? The time is going to pass anyway, and it might as well pass bringing you closer to those big things that you're looking forward to.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about making a list and writing it down and putting a date by it? I remember taking some classes years ago, and goals are important, they were saying, but also put a date by it. And maybe that gives you kind of a timeline for when you can try to achieve what it is you want to do. How do you feel about that, Faye?
I love writing things down in goals. I have the pleasure of mentoring entrepreneurs through a Goldman Sachs small business program. And one of the biggest deliverables that we have at the end of the program is an action plan. And in that action plan, we have the goals and then we have a task list. And beside each task is a date. So you know that you have to achieve that task by this date. And it is altering for the entrepreneur so much. I mean, I've adapted it into my own kind of strategic planning for my business. But that accountability, right? Something about writing something down. I don't know what it is psychologically, but it just sort of, it's there, you have to do it and you move in furtherance of it.
Yeah, I think you're right. Every morning I sit down and have a plan for the day, and then I have a monthly plan and a quarterly plan. And I think that is important. I really, really do. You've done so many things. And I think in so many ways, because of your diversity and all the things you've done, you have a lot of insight in many areas. And I think that's wonderful. I mean, you have a BA from Brigham Young University, an MA from Johns Hopkins in writing, a JD from Howard University. I mean, so accomplished. I mean, obviously your mother was a wonderful role model for you to help you, see that there is no rush. You can change. You don't have to do it now, but for your journey of where you are in life and your, our young age, you've accomplished so much. All those accomplishments, though, have allowed you to really understand what it takes and also to help people know how sometimes, as we talked about earlier, those accomplishments can really wear us out, right? We don't have an off button. I find myself sometimes, go, 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 go. And for me, taking trips, taking a European cruise or a trip gives me time to reset. So I think vacations and time away, as we talked about earlier, is important, don't you think?
Yeah, 1,000%. I got to go to Greece this summer on a retreat, and it was fantastic and amazing and needed. And I always surprise myself at how quickly I come home to myself. I kind of went feeling pretty frantic. Oh, when I get back, I have to do this. Oh, I have to get on the flight. I have to do all this. And after one good night's sleep, you wake up and realize, oh, I don't have a lot of things on my to-do list right now. This period is really about me just relaxing. And it was just so necessary. I created a lot while I was there. It was wonderful. But I also want to make sure to say as well that you can get in touch with yourself sitting at your desk, right? Taking a walk around your neighborhood, taking a meal away from your desk.
Right.
Like all of those things allow you to sort of reset and realign. I just think we have to be so deliberate about it, especially if you're ambitious, and prone to overwork. You sort of have to yell at yourself a little bit, like, get up. You haven't gotten up in a little bit, take that walk, make a call to a friend.
Or put that phone down.
Put the phone down. Yes.
Put the phone down. And it's funny you mentioned Greece. And I've mentioned this before in a previous podcast. When my son was graduating, he was in advanced English. We went to Greece and we went to the Temple of Delphi. And on the altar there inscribed in Greek is know thyself. And I think sometimes, whether it's a trip or whether it's just moving away or getting up from your desk, those times away, that off button, that reset allows you to know yourself better. Don't you think, Faye?
Yeah, 1,000%. And I also think time is our most precious resource, right? And I find that when I'm in the grind, time goes by really, really fast. And, when I take those moments away, time slows a bit, even if it's just kind of in my mind, but it's important to me to make the most of my time. Anything I can do to slow it down a little bit, or at least feel like it's going slower, I'm going to do. So yeah, it's vitally important to take those moments.
Yeah, I think so. Well, we're getting near the end, and if somebody wants to get a hold of you, now, of course, all of this will be on my website, fairmouth.com. But if anybody would like to get a hold of you, Faye, how do they do that?
Yeah, you can find me at faymccray.com. I'm also very active on LinkedIn, so you can just look me up at Faye McCray. Happy to connect with anyone. Love meeting people.
Okay. Well, I'm just so thrilled to know you and honored to know you. And I'm just so happy that we had someone of your caliber on Career Can Do. I always like to leave our listeners, Faye, with two salient points they can think through, digest, maybe use to go forward in their careers or their personal lives. We had to leave our listeners with two salient points from what we've talked about today. What do you think those 2 points would be?
Yeah, I would say the first is that overworking isn't a badge of honor. It really is a barrier to fulfillment. So I would say take that inventory of those parts of yourself that tell you that overworking equates success or worth and reevaluate, to get some more autonomy over your time. I also think that ambition and boundaries can coexist. I think you can be an ambitious person and still set boundaries around your personal life. I mean, it's about striving for success, but also protecting your time and your energy and your sense of self.
Oh, I think those were wonderful. Well, Faye, I'm so happy to know you. I look forward to knowing you better. And we have to end this, but we'll see you all next time. This is Career Can Do. You can download us on all major podcast channels. This is being aired during the holiday time. So we wish you the happiest of holidays and the most fulfilling and relaxing and enjoyable 2025. Thank you. Bye-bye. We thank you for tuning in to our Career Can Do podcast. We make no guarantees on results for your particular quest, but we hope you enjoy the information presented. The views and opinions expressed in this program are solely that of the guest or speaker and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of Mary Ann Fairmouth and Fairmouth and Company. Thank you.